Today's video is a little warning about single shares. Now, before we go any further, I'd just like to add that this is not advice, this is information only. Now, if you like today's video, if you like the content, give it a little like and subscribe to the channel. Help me get the content out there. So, single shares. This video is a little warning about single shares, and it's about what not to do. Now, I'm the self-confessed expert on how not to invest, and this was especially the case between 2008 and 2018. Now, during this period, I made mistake after mistake when it came to personal finance and investing. And one of those mistakes was the way I invested in the stock market, the way I invested with single shares. Now, between 2019 and 2022, I've been working hard on my financial literacy, and with some much needed financial literacy, I now see single shares as a legitimate way of investing. But you need some serious financial literacy. You need to know how to pick single shares. You need to know what you're doing. Now, I didn't know what I was doing between 2008 and 2018 because I was an inexperienced investor. And when you first start out investing, I would avoid investing in single shares, from my experience anyway. And I'm going to use this video to try and push you away from diving into single shares. And I'm going to do that with a few examples of what I've done back in 2010, 2011, and even more recently. So back in the day, back in 2010, when I first started offshore, I invested in single shares because of what the lads offshore were saying when I first started offshore, because of what the lads down the local pub were saying. I didn't do any research, no research whatsoever. I got a bit of FOMO. I wanted to get in and make some quick, easy money. Don't do this. Do your own research, because from my experience, investing without doing your research only leads to pain, leads to stress and anxiety. So back in 2010, when I first dipped my toes in the stock market with single shares, the lads offshore were talking about Rockhopper and a few other companies that lads had made a small fortune from. I'm talking hundreds of thousands, and I wanted a little piece of the action. So I bought Victoria Oil and a few other shares. I think there was 3 altogether. I put £2,000 in each without doing my research, and I checked in on them shares every 5 minutes. This led to stress and anxiety, and this went on for months and months. It even went into 2011, and I eventually lost all of that £6,000. So this is really the first time I got into single shares. Now, I didn't stop there. I got into JJB, but I did do a little bit of research this time. I looked in the back of the Sun in the stocks and shares page and did a quick 5-minute read and got into JJB. I got in at 4p. I put £2,000 in. Now my £2,000 went up to £50,000. Now the reason why I didn't cash out is because I was wanting it to go to £100,000. Pure greed and stupidity. And again, this is another example of how not to invest. If you make a good profit, like if you go from 2,000 to 50,000, at some point you've got to cash out. You've got to take some profits. But I didn't, because again, I was greedy and I was stupid. So that's a second example of how not to invest. So going back to this time, 2010, 2011, I just started offshore and I was just making my way in life. Me and my future wife were getting our second home. We had a 2-year-old girl, and that £8,000 that I lost on single shares was money we really needed. So I gambled with our life savings, really. So again, don't do this. Another example of what not to do. Now, thankfully, I went a few years without getting into single shares, learned my lesson, put my money into other things. Well, I didn't really learn my lesson. I put my savings into premium bonds and earned less than 1%, but I didn't get into any more single shares up until 2018, 2019, when I got into serious minerals. Now this was because of what the lads were saying down the pub. They were talking about a local mine in the North Yorkshire Moors. I got in at 20 pence, and because I'd been burned by single shares before, I only put a few £100 in. It's still a lot of money. I put £500 in, but at least it wasn't £2,000 or £8,000. So I put this £500 in, and this was just at the time when I was starting to learn about money. So I had a little bit of financial literacy. I was learning about money, and I was aware of the risks. I was aware that I could lose all or most of this money. And this is exactly what happened. Because Serious Minerals was failing. It was a failing business, and it eventually got bought out in early 2020 by Anglo American, and I think it was for about 400 million. And they bought it at a share price of 5.5 pence. So that 20 pence I got in at meant I lost money. So say if I put £500 in, I think I ended up with about £130 from my £500 investment. So again, I'd lost money. Not as much in previous years, but I'd lost money. Now, what I'm doing with this video is I'm telling you of a few examples of what not to do, what I've done. And the main reason I made these mistakes was a total lack of financial literacy. I was clueless for money between 2008 and 2018 until I decided to learn about money. Until I decided to learn how to invest my money. Once I finally done some research at the start of 2019, what I'd realised was index investing was a way for me to invest in the stock market. This was because I knew I was an emotional investor. And index investing removes the emotions from my experience. What you're doing, you invest in a fund, and you invest and you get in that fund a small slice of several companies. So if one of them companies fails, the other companies insulate you, so you're not losing all your money. Now, with some research based on the books I was reading and historical data, I was confident that I could make 7 to 8% with index funds. And this has been the case over the last 3 years. And the best thing about index funds for me personally, because I am an emotional investor, is that I've only checked into my fund like once, maybe twice a year. And this wasn't the case with single shares. I was literally checking every 5 minutes. And again, this led to stress and anxiety. So for me personally, index investing has helped because I've managed to get 7 to 8% interest, if not higher. So I've achieved a decent interest, especially when you compare that interest to high street banks. But the best thing for me is I haven't been stressed out. I've checked my index fund once a year. Now, I'm not saying that index investing is for you. This is just a little warning against single shares, especially if you just start to invest, especially if you've got a limited amount of financial literacy. Don't dive into single shares. Do some research and get some much needed financial literacy. Then you find a way to invest that suits you. Then you can invest your way to financial independence. And essentially, that's what Duff Money is about. It's about me documenting my journey towards financial independence. And it's also me trying to put some decent content out there to help other people with their financial independence. Now, that'll do for today's video. If you found value in the content, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Help me get the content out there. And check out the video description for some more useful content.